Fundamentals of Hustling webinar series, and it's going to be on thinking and behaving entrepreneurially, or since a lot of people think of entrepreneurship meaning starting a new company, but this is also going to be on how to create a project that you own and to get hired, promoted, and funded for. So it's going to be not just on starting new companies, but starting projects that, projects that you own and you can get funded for. Okay, so why do I say the fundamentals of hustling? That's the name of the series that I'm doing, and I want to call attention to. So why hustling? Hustling, I think, is a little bit different than entrepreneurship or leadership. Those are the two things that I teach, and also sales. But it's a little bit of all of those things. And I want to say I'm going to do entrepreneurship in the context of hustling, in the sense of, like, one of my favorite examples is Richard Branson. He is worth $5.2 billion. He didn't start with all of that. He also has he's dyslexic, so he didn't start with a whole lot, and he had a lot of things holding him back. And here's a story. I don't know if you guys know the story about him starting Virgin Atlantic. The very first time he did anything with an airplane, it was in 1979. This is him quoted. In 1979, when Joan, his fiancée, and he were on holiday to the British Virgin Islands, that's where the Virgin comes from, we were trying to catch a flight to Puerto Rico, but the local Puerto Rican scheduled flight was canceled. The airport terminal was full of stranded passengers. I made a few calls to charter companies and agreed to charter a plane for $2,000 to Puerto Rico. Leaving out his fiancée's and his name, he divided the price by the remaining number of passengers, borrowed a blackboard, and wrote Virgin Airways $39 for a single flight to Puerto Rico. I walked around the airport terminal and soon filled every seat on the charter plane. As we landed at Puerto Rico, a passenger turned to me and said, "Virgin Airways isn't too bad. Smarten up the services and you can be in business." So this is an example of someone identifying a problem, solving it in a way that people would pay for it, and even making money himself or saving money for the trip. I call that hustling. It's, a lot of people think of hustling meaning something closer to stealing, but that's not the way that I use it. Hustling is like moving quickly in order to find out what needs people have and solve them in a way that people are glad that you did. It's not rare among self-made successful people to have things like that started things off. You can think of Bill Gates and lots of other examples of people who did things like that. They didn't need capital. They didn't need what you know. They didn't even know who you know. A lot of times people say it's not what you know, it's whom you know, but he didn't know anyone. He just called up the airlines and he sold to the people all by himself, that people he didn't really know. There was no business plan competition or any of the stuff that business schools teach of how to start something entrepreneurial. So a little secret that I like to think of is it's not what you know, nor is it whom you know. But more important than either of those is, do you have the skills to identify problems people will pay you to solve? And that's what I want to talk about. If you can identify problems that people will pay you to solve, you can start your own company, but oftentimes if you're in a company that you don't want to leave, you will get promoted if you can identify these things and figure out ways to solve them. You can get hired by others, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this webinar. So that's an example of successful entrepreneurial thinking behavior. Like I said, there are many other ones. My course teaches you to create your own luck. A lot of people look at how people do these things and they think, oh, they just got lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. But I'm sure we've all heard the phrase that chance favors the prepared mind. And when you're prepared, and I teach how to prepare yourself in an entrepreneurial context, then luck seems to come your way. And that's in the style of successful entrepreneurs and leaders who created their own success, who created their success. Okay, a few words about myself. You guys probably know me, but if you don't, here's what would show up on my CV. Years ago, I went to grad school and got my PhD in physics, astrophysics, and I worked on a satellite that's now orbiting the planet, and it's working very well. It went up in 2000. It was designed for a 10-year mission. It's still working, so I did something well there. I mean, it wasn't my satellite, but at least the component I worked on is working very well. As much as I love physics and wanted to continue in it, it wasn't right for me and it wasn't the right time. And I decided that, a friend of mine and I decided to start a company. And here's one of the first big articles about us in the Wall Street Journal in 2001. And that went very well for a while, up until the recession hit and the bubble burst. And after that, I realized that physics prepared me for a lot, but it didn't prepare me to run a business. And that's why I went back to get a PhD. I'm sorry, to get an MBA. There I am looking just like I did when I got my PhD, but I just had the one picture. And I wanted to get my MBA to learn the hard skills of business that I never learned in graduate school. So like accounting and finance and strategy and things like that. What I discovered there were the soft skills, and I realized that they were much more valuable for me. I mean, it was important to balance a balance sheet, but how to create a team, how to lead, how to negotiate, how to do sales, these I realized were much more important for me. And I'd gone my whole life not really knowing that stuff was there. So it became a passion of mine. As much as I loved what I learned about entrepreneurship and leadership there, it wasn't, how to put it, I learned more about leadership and about entrepreneurship than to practice them. And so I got my PhD a little over 10 years ago. My MBA 10 years ago. And ever since then, learning these soft skills has been my increasingly biggest passion. And not just learning them, but in the past maybe 5 years since I've been teaching at NYU, to improve my skills at teaching these things. Because I think that lecture and case study, which was the main way that I learned these things, is useful for many things, but not for the really emotionally challenging and socially challenging skills and practices like entrepreneurship and leadership. So I've been learning other ways of doing it, which I'll talk about in this presentation. I've been covered by almost every major news network and print media, everything. So here's one example. Esquire named me Best and Brightest one year in their annual Genius issue. But I've been in a lot of different places. I'm saying this not to brag, but just as a matter of, that's some of the success that I've had. Nowadays, I'm an executive and a personal coach. I'm an adjunct at NYU. At Columbia, I also lecture and coach in leadership and entrepreneurship. So I'm very happy doing these things. I'm an author and a blogger. I don't know if you guys read my blog, but I recommend subscribing. I post every single day, and I've posted every day. This is my 6th year going without missing a day. And that's turned into a lot of cool things. I'm working on a book right now. I'm a columnist for Inc.com. And actually, not shortly after being there, I had actually the most read piece in Inc.com for a couple of days, which I was very happy about, just getting started. And so those are a few things about me, just for background. I want to give another example besides the Richard Branson example. So, and this time closer to home. So this is a client who wanted to leave his company in frustration. He found me when I was coaching, and he said, "Josh, I'd like you to coach me. You have a business school background, but you also have an entrepreneurial background." And he's very frustrated at the place where he was working. He was doing very well. He was the #1 performer in his position at a job. He was a service provider to hedge funds. So he worked with a lot of top hedge funds. He really wanted to, as much as he was doing well at his position, he very much wanted to have a say in the management of the company, take on some kind of leadership role. The thing was that he kept giving them proposals, that he kept giving the management of the company proposals, and they kept listening politely, but they would never take his proposal. And so he felt like his contributions weren't valued. So he said, "Josh, as much as I am doing well working there, I want to leave. I want to start my own company. I'm really not happy with people just not following up on my stuff." So he thought he wanted to start a new company. We worked for a while, and on exercises that later evolved into the course that I'm going to talk about today. And one of the things we did was listened a lot to the management, to what their problems were, as opposed to what he thought they were. And also to present them in ways that they would listen to him more, and to, among other things, to describe to them not just what the idea was, but what his role would be, what roles others would be, what resources were necessary. Building out these short descriptions that he gave, building them out more into proposals that they could say yes to. So we worked on that for a while, and one day we met over the phone, and one day I picked up the phone to talk to him, and he was very excited. He said, "Josh, I'm not leaving my company." I said, "That's odd, because I thought you wanted to leave." And he said, "My last proposal that you and I developed together, I showed it to them, and they gave me the project. In fact, I'm going to run the project. I have responsibility for it." And he realized that when he owned his project, he realized what he wanted. He didn't want to leave his company. He didn't want to start a company from scratch and do all the stuff that goes into it, like going for a year without pay, figuring out how to create the systems for his company, and all those sorts of things like that. He wanted ownership, responsibility, control, challenge. These are things that he wanted. And when he was able to get them without leaving, he realized he didn't want to leave. So I mentioned this as a way of describing that the course that I'm going to describe, it prepares you for starting your own company, but it also prepares you for advancing in a company you're working at, or even getting hired at a new company. It's the opposite of neediness and dependency. When you want to get a job at another company, and if you're going in and saying, "Can I work for you? Are you interviewing?" It's really asking them to help you out. It's not coming in and describing how you can help them. This is going to be what I describe in this course as the opposite of that. I'm going to give a couple examples. I've been teaching this for several years at NYU to graduate students, to undergrads, and also to professional students who are coming back in the School of Professional Studies. So ranging from 19-year-olds, maybe even 18-year-olds, up to people in their 30s and 40s. And I'm going to give one example of a student of mine a couple of years ago. Before she started the course, she didn't know that she was going to take an experiential course. She thought she was just going to take a class about entrepreneurship. And in the course, she found out, I'm going to have you guys prepare and build a company, as I'm going to describe, or not necessarily a company, but a project. She'd always wanted to get into the music business. And after a while, the idea that she started with, or the problem that she started with, she developed into, I'll describe it quickly. It's a project that, I hope you guys know Governor's Ball. It's a concert that's every summer in New York City. It's held on Randall's Island, and it's a big 3-day thing, and people love it. It's a big event. So it's filled with lots of people coming. It's something like $200-300 to get a 3-day ticket. So it's kind of expensive. They have a deal where you can, instead of paying for a ticket, you can volunteer at the event and you get in without paying. So you exchange your labor for the ticket. Her idea was, instead of volunteering at the event, she would create a separate organization that would organize organizations around Manhattan, generally soup kitchens, food pantries, shelters, places for people who are needy. And instead of volunteering at the event, these people with more time than money, often students, could volunteer at a homeless shelter. Her organization would do all the organization and then make sure that you would work a minimum amount of time in order to earn the ticket. Okay, so you see the benefit to the person going to volunteer because they don't have to pay for the ticket. And as it turns out, this thing, I'll jump a little ahead, it took off and it worked very well. And people who went to volunteer at a soup kitchen felt much better about what they were doing than people who are picking up garbage at an event. Meanwhile, the soup kitchens and food pantries get a bunch of free labor that they would not have gotten otherwise. And Governor's Ball itself, that organization, well, in one sense, you might think they're giving tickets to people who are not now picking up trash at the event. Actually, these guys don't get the best press. And now this is a big PR thing for them that they can say legitimately, no lying or anything, that they're responsible for thousands and thousands of hours donated to needy and charitable organizations throughout the city. So the story is that she developed this idea as homework for the course. And at one point, part of the homework was you contact people in organizations, and she contacted them. They wrote her back and they said, "This project sounds great. If you give us a full proposal, the project is yours." So that was in the middle of the semester. By the end of the semester, she had given them a proposal. They gave her the project, and it became GBGB, which is Governor's Ball Gives Back. They put up a web page, and only a couple of weeks later, it was so subscribed that they took down the web page because they'd given away as many tickets as they possibly could. And a little bit later, when they started volunteering, the students and people who volunteered reported tremendous satisfaction getting to do things that they had never done before. And also, because the event is on Randall's Island, all of the places where they volunteered tended to be in Harlem, nearby to where you go across from Manhattan to Randall's Island. So it built community. So that expanded to the Electric Zoo, another concert that's in the summer, and she built a relationship with them. They're now part of a publicly traded company that does all sorts of summer and events all over the world. And when they started working with her, they said, instead of working within our organization, we prefer you to create a 501c3. So she started doing that. I believe she's underway now working on that. And now she's in her second year working with Governor's Ball. And I'm not sure her status with Electric Zoo, but that's going very well. Not long after that, I was invited to Harvard to speak for myself, and I invited her with me. So she also has gotten to speak at Harvard about the success that she's been having with this project that helps everybody. As you see, it's kind of hustling in that everybody benefits. Nobody's putting out any big capital. And she's doing very well. She, for a student, she's like 19, 20 years old. And she's getting to work with these publicly traded companies, doing all these big things. A lot of students at NYU, their big goal is to put big things on their resumes that are credentials. I think you can see that she's making her way into this community of the music business without credentials or before. I mean, I'm sure she'll get her degree, but she's doing it by creating relationships and solving problems and making things work by actually doing things. And I remind you, she didn't know that she would start a project when she signed up for the course. She thought she was just going to take a regular class with lecturing and homework. And instead, she got to actually start something. Another example, a student who took my course last semester, I won't go into the details of his project, but I'll tell you that in December, when the semester ended, he went home, and my course is just about entrepreneurship. You'll hear all of the exercises in my course in a few minutes. Over break, he went home. His family has a retail business. And just because it's his family's business, during the break, he was working on the floor of his family store. He said that over the winter, he outsold the professional salespeople in the company that had been working there for years. It had never happened before. And he had never taken a sales class. He was simply applying what he had learned through the exercises in the course that he took with me of how to identify on other people's needs and to satisfy them in ways that they thank you for. Another student of mine, she contacted one of my guest speakers, got an internship with him, and he's a big brand manager. He does a lot of brand work, and his big clients are Ralph Lauren, Victoria's Secret, and so on. And I found out that over break, after her internship started, she got to work with him at the Victoria's Secret runway show, which is a very difficult thing to get into, but she was there working, but also getting to enjoy being there. Again, the sort of thing that happens when you take initiative, and she was able to contact the guy and offer him value, not just ask him if she could work with him. And I should say that at the beginning of the semester, when I was telling people about the course, when I was giving them this talk, she raised her hand and said, what if I can't do any of these things? What if I don't know how to start a company? She was basically very scared about contacting people. So the lesson here is that she, step by step, went through the course, and at no point was there some big challenging thing that she had to do. The big steps that come at the end came after a little baby step from the thing before, and everything's little baby steps to start from very simple things, getting up to very advanced things. And I contrast this with most other entrepreneurship books and courses. Most of them, there's a lot of books out there that are like the 5 laws of entrepreneurship or the 10 principles of this or the rules that you have to follow. There's a lot of things that are biography of big entrepreneurs. Now, these are valuable. I don't want to detract from them. But no great entrepreneur became great from knowing lots of principles that they read in a book. They get these things from experience. And those books, those courses, they provide information, not experience. And entrepreneurs develop skills from experience. By comparison, there are a lot of other fields that are very experiential, like learning to play an instrument, learning to act, learning to sing, learning to make art. Imagine learning piano by reading about Bach and someone lecturing you on musical theory. Or imagine learning how to play basketball by someone just telling you how to play, but not actually putting a basketball in your hands. Or learning to act by reading about Brad Pitt, but not actually getting on stage. These fields that I talked about are active, social, expressive, emotional, performance-based. So history, accounting, they have some elements of these things, but they're not really the same as where entrepreneurship, you have to go up and meet with people. You have to perform. So my course gives exercises to face and overcome the social and emotional challenges that these performance-based fields have. Now, every other field that's like this, they teach through exercises. If you want to learn to play basketball, they give you drills. If you learn to play acting, they give you exercises like to practice and practice and practice. only in entrepreneurship and leadership, they're much younger fields for us to teach. Do we not do it this way? Well, so far, that's what I'm changing. If you try to implement entrepreneurship principles without practice, I don't know if any of you guys have ever walked into a sales meeting or into a negotiation feeling like, oh, I know what to do. I know all the rules of entrepreneurship. I know how to sell. And then you've hit the emotional challenges of like you walk in the room and suddenly you start freaking out. So if you try to go in without practicing, just knowing theory, the first negotiation, the first conflict, you get overwhelmed with emotion. Very difficult. Books, case study, even class discussions can't give you that experience. You have to face it. The way my course works is to start you off with very simple things and build these things up. Same way if you learn to play the piano, you start with very simple scales, work up to more complicated, more complex, still simple etudes. Then you work up to simple pieces, and you work up to very complex pieces. And the thing is that experience also teaches you theory. So experience doesn't just give you experience, it gives you theory as well. That is, if the experience is based on theory. So when you learn a scale on the piano, they're not telling you to hit random keys on the keyboard. They're telling you to hit specific keys in a specific order because through centuries of practice, people have learned that this is the best way to learn it. Only in entrepreneurship have we not figured out what these scales are. Well, most others haven't, but that's what this course is about. It gives everyone a unique and personal experience because you work on what you care about with people that you care about. So everyone gets their own course. The exercises are similar, but just like two people learning to play the piano will learn to play very differently, even though they're given the same scales to play, the same thing will happen here. Now you could say, I could just learn this stuff through regular life. That's a lot of entrepreneurs. They never took courses in entrepreneurship and they became great. Well, the thing about regular life is that if you're lucky, you may get just the right challenges in just the right order to take you from not knowing anything to knowing a lot, to knowing even more, to becoming an expert. That may happen if you're lucky, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way. Oftentimes, regular life throws random stuff at you in an order that you're not prepared. And sometimes the big challenge comes early and you haven't yet built up the skills to handle it. So you don't necessarily learn optimally. Life doesn't give you the things to learn in just the right order. And that's why many try entrepreneurship, but sometimes things are much too difficult at the beginning, and then they accept, I just can't do this, and they accept complacency. That is to say, they accept just working for other people, thinking, you have to be born an entrepreneur, or I just can't do it. It's just not me. They believe you have to be born with it. But I remind you, Richard Branson was not born an entrepreneur. He was born dyslexic. That no one is born starting projects. No one comes out born starting companies. It just doesn't happen. Everybody learns it somehow. Now, out there, you may know that there's this, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. There's a popular way of learning entrepreneurship called the lean methodology. There's the lean launchpad and lean companies, the lean startup, lots of books on that, lots of courses on that. It can be very effective. I've seen it work with many people and led to starting great companies, and they liked it very much. It is not without drawbacks, however. So I want to give you there's this book called The Lean Startup, which is like one of the main books on how to develop, to practice lean. And this is chapter 1. So you're about to hit a big block of text, but this is the beginning of chapter 1 of The Lean Startup. And I want to point out that this is a book about entrepreneurial management, not to detract, but this is a book to teach you management. Okay, sorry, it's a lot of text. Building a startup is an exercise in institution building. Thus, it necessarily involves management. Jumping to the next paragraph. Entrepreneurs are rightly wary of implementing traditional management practices early on in a startup, afraid that they will invite bureaucracy or stifle creativity. Entrepreneurs have been trying to fit the square peg of their unique problems into the round hole of general management for decades. Skipping down, the tremendous success of general management over the last century has provided unprecedented material abundance, but those management principles are ill-suited to handle the chaos and uncertainty that startups must face. I believe that entrepreneurship requires managerial discipline to harness the entrepreneurial opportunity we have been given. What I'm trying to give here is that the person who wrote this book, Eric Ries, that I was just copying what he wrote a book on management, of how to manage an entrepreneurial situation. Now that's important. The thing is that it takes for granted that let's see. When you start doing the lean methodology, it takes for granted that you already have an idea that you want to start with and that you already have a team. Well, that's great for many people. A lot of people out of technology, maybe they develop something and they come up with some product and they think, oh, I should really take this to market. For them, it can be very successful, especially if you have an engineering background. If you have a lot of tech startups, a lot of Silicon Valley places go in the direction of lean startup. And I think it's very effective for them. It excels at turning engineers, people who learned electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science. It's great at turning people who are very systematic to turn them into managers of their startups. It's not, however, designed to develop and grow you as a person. It often will if you have a project that is already set with a team that's already set. You just want to manage it more effectively. However, it starts post-idea, which often reinforces what I call the myth of the great idea. I talk to a lot of people who tell me they want to start companies and they haven't started them yet. And I say, why haven't you started them? The number one answer I hear over and over again is that I don't have a great idea yet. They think that other people start with great ideas and that's what gets their company. That's like, oh, if I just get a great idea, then I will also start my company. I just haven't had it yet. Over and over, the more that I learn about it, the beginnings of startups, no matter how great the idea appears when it takes off, I've never heard of a case where the great idea, where the startup began with a great idea. Much more important than starting with a great idea is the ability to improve an okay idea. And even more important than that is to identify an unsolved problem and a community, people that are feeling that problem. And that's what this course is about. Oh, I should also mention, this is an aside, but the effect that lean startup has on universities. Because I teach at NYU, I participate in a lot of entrepreneurial planning meetings. And there's a lot of people there that they want to get their students involved with this lean startup stuff. But it ends up creating a lot of bureaucracy within the university that leads to a lot of grants, a lot of business plan competitions, a lot of things that are interesting in learning about the field of entrepreneurship. But they divert the students' attention from the problem and the people feeling it. And ultimately, if you're starting a project that's entrepreneurial, thinking and behaving entrepreneurially means knowing the people, the problem that you want to solve and the people who are feeling it, your customer. Ultimately, no matter what prizes you win at the beginning, if you want to be profitable, you need people paying for the product or service that you're creating. And that means solving their problem to improve their life more than the money that they give to you in exchange for you solving their problem. Now, in the way I think of it, it's diverting you, the student, away from empathy, compassion, and developing as a person toward, now it can be very effective, managing mechanically an entrepreneurial organization. It's very effective, that's very important, but that's different than what I'm doing. I'm trying to teach people who want to become entrepreneurs, who want to express themselves through the craft of their business, but don't yet have the idea that they want to start with, but they do know that they want to think and behave entrepreneurially. All right, I want to get into more details about the course. The course structure, like I said, it gives you exercises that you do in your life with other people. I just give you the structure and you do the things. Okay, so the structure, like I think of, is very similar in structure to how you learn to play the piano. First, you start with scales. Now, they may feel kind of mechanical at the beginning. When you're hitting you press this key with your thumb, this finger, this key with your first finger, this key with your second finger. It may sound very mechanical, but everyone who makes it to Carnegie Hall stage played those scales. After you do the scales, when you master them and you know you can take for granted that your fingers are operating the way you want them to, you move on to simple etudes, which are simple compared to real music, but they get your fingers moving in just the right way. They're more complex than scales. After you've mastered that, then you start doing simple pieces. And after you've mastered the simple pieces, you can move on to complex pieces. And when you do the complex pieces, when you've mastered that, then you can start expressing yourself through the music, not just playing notes that are there, but expressing yourself. So the structure of my course is the same as other active, social, expressive, emotional, performance-based fields. And when you finish it, you will be able to express yourself as an entrepreneur like a Carnegie Hall musician can express themselves as a musician. And I mean that you can express yourself. You can advance what your hopes and dreams are through your business, through your project, in a way that a lot of people only dream they can, dream that they could. And here's a little student feedback. Let's see what I have. This is one from a student of mine. As a senior, this was the first course that challenged me, asking me to think outside my comfort zones. Yet it is also where I developed a strong network of supporters through group projects. So this is coming from a student who's at NYU. This is an elite university, and this class gets fully subscribed every year. And somehow, through 3 years of taking classes there, they've never gotten one that challenged them. I think what they mean here is that they've taken courses that gave them a lot of work, that made them write papers that were challenging to write. But this was going outside their comfort zone. This was challenging them as a human being to think and behave in ways that they never had before. Now, despite that challenge, or maybe because of that challenge, note that it's also where they developed a strong network of supporters through group projects. So the projects that they did ended up getting them to interact with a lot of other people. And not just interact with them, but to build relationships that were productive, constructive, where the others ended up being helpful to them. Here's another quote. Message for future students. Take the course seriously. Take advantage of every aspect of the course. In my 7 semesters at NYU, it's easily been one of the most valuable courses I've taken. Please give it the time it deserves. Don't be scared to reach out to people, anyone at all, for advice. The worst they can say is no, and the best is invaluable. The reason I mention this is that this last bit, don't be scared to reach out to people, anyone at all, for advice. Now, these were anonymous quotes. I got them through, someone else collects them, and I get this. I don't know who wrote this, but I'm pretty sure that this person, before taking this course, had not reached out to people. I think it's clear that this person was originally scared to reach out to people to get advice. Probably got said no to a few times, but also got some invaluable advice. They became a peer with people that they worked with outside of NYU. And that's a natural outcome of doing this course. Another student said, the class taught me how to create sustainable solutions to remedy problems I'm passionate about. I'm incredibly grateful for the business and social tools I gained from this course. I picked this one because of the passion that this person showed. Nobody begins, I can't speak for anyone, but I'm pretty sure that nobody begins the course thinking to themselves, I know what my passion is, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. They have to struggle through some challenges to figure out exactly what they want to do. And usually they start off with something that they don't really feel that passionate about. But the course develops your ability to identify what these passions are and to work on them. At the same time, you're developing your passions and you're solving other people's problems. This is what the entrepreneur's dream is. And this course tends to lead people to that. Okay. Now I want to go into much more detail, the 10 exercises that make up this course. So I'm going to tell you exactly the exercises that I assign. And if you do this course, you'll do them. And in fact, you can memorize this, you can get the copy of this webinar after it's done. And you can just look at it and possibly you can do them yourself. I think it'll be easier to do it as part of the course, as I'll explain later. But here's the 10 exercises. I begin with a personal essay. Now, I don't like doing essays just for the sake of giving a writing assignment. The point of the essay is to get you grounded in a field that's interesting to you. It doesn't have to be the only field that's interesting to you, but just something that's more interesting to you than others. And I also have people list a few people in the field. So it could be, I asked you to list a few people in the field who are big top names in the field, like people you would love to talk to. Then also people who are more accessible. So maybe not the top people in the field, but people that you can reach. And then also a few of your role models. And I do this because it's my beginning of getting you thinking in terms not of abstract concepts, but of actual living, breathing human beings that you may talk to. Next, I say take a little time and think of 5 problems in the field. So usually people take about a week for this exercise. Think about the field that you're thinking of and think of problems that, could be better solved, could be solved at all. And at first, it takes people a couple days, but eventually they start writing down some problems. And I say to come up with rudimentary solutions. And what I mean by rudimentary solution is something that in any way could suggest solving the problem. By no means do I mean these have to be marketable ideas, that these have to be ready to go out the door, or anything. In fact, the further from that, the better. Because I want people getting the idea that you don't need a perfect solution to start your project with. In fact, you don't need any great solution, because the next several exercises develop the solution. So at the end of this stage, generally they have a list of problems and some very, very basic rudimentary solutions that most of them are kind of embarrassed to share with other people, but that's all you need for the next stage. The next stage is to find 5 people close to you, people who are non-judgmental, people that you can talk to and just say, I'm taking this course in entrepreneurship. I got a couple ideas. Do you mind if I bounce them off of you? And I give you a script that you can use if you want. I mean, they're people close to you, so generally you can talk to them however you want. But for people who aren't really ready, I give them a script that makes it easy to talk to people. And just to ask for advice from a couple of them, from these 5 people, and you'll be amazed at how quickly that advice actually starts to make sense and the rudimentary solution starts taking form. I also ask you to ask them to vote for which is their favorite. So at the end of this exercise, you reduce it from 5 ideas, 5 projects, 5 problems and solutions down to 1, and you will have had a few suggestions of how to improve it. So now you have a slightly better single idea, something that you like a little bit more. The next stage is to talk to 10 friends and family members. So these can be anyone, generally not as people as close to you, and you're branching out a little bit more. And here you're giving a slightly different description of the project. You're going to talk about the problem and the solution, and you're going to ask them advice to have them improve the idea for you. You would be amazed at how quickly the idea starts to take shape, but a couple other amazing things happen at this stage. You start feeling a sense of ownership of the project, and you start feeling like more motivated because you start seeing that there's a path from where you are to maybe something that is worth kind of doing. I also give you here specific scripts for how to talk to people in a way that you don't only get advice from them, but that you also enlist their aid. When they start giving you advice, they feel really good about giving you the advice. When they see that you listen to them, they see a little bit of themselves in your solution, and they have a vested interest in your succeeding. So by the end of the stage, you have an idea that's significantly better, generally a stronger sense of ownership, and the beginnings of people supporting you. Oh, and you've also practiced doing these interviews so that you're more practiced at it. Now, most people, the 10 friends and family members that they talk to, are not particularly perfectly suited to help with that project. So the advice you get is not necessarily the best advice. But all this talking to people is for building up to later and later stages where you talk to more and more advanced people. I'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to point out that this is preparing you for things later. The next stage, now that you have a sense of the project that you want to work on, so far you've been developing it kind of in a vacuum. That is to say, not talking to people who feel the problem. So the next stage is to talk to at least 5 people with the problem. And the outcome of this one is to write down the problem in the words of the people feeling the problem. Not in your words. You're not the one you're selling this product to. They are, or service. And this stage develops empathy and compassion for the people that you want to sell to, the people whose problem you want to solve. Now, people who are salespeople, they will often pick up that when people describe their problem to you, they're telling you how to sell it to them later on. That's a side effect. The main thing is that you start getting a better sense of the problem. At this stage, people start feeling a stronger sense of urgency, like this problem is out there. I have an idea for how to solve it. It's killing me that I haven't yet brought it to market because I could be helping these people. And so people start feeling, sometimes to the point of inspiration, motivation, that they really want to work on this project. And it's amazing how this happens. This could be if they're doing 1 exercise per week. This is barely a month into the project, and they're starting to feel a way that they've never felt before. Now, they're not usually ready to start the project yet, but they're getting there. The next is to talk to 10 people in the field closer than you. So these are people who, usually you start with the few that you mentioned in the personal essay, but they're people that are closer to the field. They could be, like if you want to develop an app for musicians, it could be app builders, it could be musicians, it could be people who listen to a lot of music, it could be people who have built lots of apps. So the thing here is that you're talking to people who are able to give you more useful advice. And also, it's a bit more of a challenge because oftentimes these are going to be people that you've never met before, whereas the people before tend to be people that you've met or have some sort of relationship to. So you're developing your skills to talk to people about stuff that you've had practice now. You've talked to maybe 20 people so far, maybe more. So you've had some practice, but now you're starting to start talking to people who know their field better, and you start getting references from them to other people. And I give you scripts again for questions to ask at the end of the conversation for them to help you give new advice that you wouldn't have thought to ask for, and to connect you with other people that you wouldn't have been able to connect with before. At the end of this stage, students describing the project they're working on, it's incredible that they start talking about federal regulations and different people who are doing different projects that are similar and who they would work with and all these different things, that they really are talking like a sophisticated person in the field, even if they've never been in that field before. Okay, now we've taken it pretty far. These first 6 steps have been a lot of product development, but they're all outward facing. You've been talking to a lot of people. So the next stage is that we want to work on developing how this operation is going to work. And so I give you a very structured way of creating a visual model of the operation of the business, who you interact with, your customers, your suppliers, if you need licenses, the government, all these, if you pay rent, then a landlord, and figuring out all the other players that are involved in your project. And again, this could be a project that you started from scratch, but it could also be other departments within the company you're working in. Or it could be if you're not working right now and you want to get a job at a new company, you could be talking about departments within a company that you're not even in. You can do this because right now we're just writing down the visual model. And I give a very simple way of doing it. I describe exactly how to do it. And by the end of the stage, people start feeling like, before this, they often say they felt like a lot of stuff was kind of a jumble. And now they feel like this is a concrete, tangible project that they're working on. The jumble has laid itself out, and they know who works with whom and how and when and things like that. Okay, now after the visual model, the next step is to refine things even more. And that is to learn the details and to make sure that you're sustainable. I don't mean sustainably environmentally, although I hope you do that too. I mean sustainable in that you're profitable, or at least breaking even. And I do this by doing the finances. Now, you guys probably have MBAs who are listening to this right now, but not everyone does. And a lot of people taking this course they've never worked with a spreadsheet before. They've never done finances. And so I give a very quick and dirty way of doing it. That's not, any professional accountant would say that's not double entry. That's not proper. You really got to do it better. But for the entrepreneur at this stage, it does the main thing that I'm looking for, which is there's something about doing the numbers that tells you the details about your operation, like that nothing else can give you. You have to figure out what your revenues are, what your costs are, how profitable you are, how much investment you're going to need. And I give a very simple way of doing it that, well, if you've taken accounting classes before and you know how to do accounting, it's very easy. If you haven't, it's not too challenging, and you figure out what the details are, what the assumptions are, so that you know what the important parts of your business are. Now, the next stage is an interesting one. For a long time, I didn't have it in there. And then I realized that in these last 8 exercises, people have developed incredibly, and they don't realize how much they've developed. And so in preparation for step 10, step 9 is a second personal essay to reinforce how much you have developed as an entrepreneur yourself, as an entrepreneurially minded thinker and doer. Also, for you to understand how much further you have come in your field. You've talked to lots of people. You've gotten advice from people. You can legitimately say, without any exaggeration, that so-and-so advised me on this project and it's better because of that person. And I'm going to go back to that person later and tell them, they're involved with this project. And it's not even name dropping because you're legitimately saying what you've actually done. I, as the professor, as the teacher of this course, I love reading these personal essays because I can see how much people have developed, how much farther along they are, that they never dreamt they could have come this far. And they're invested in a way that they have ownership of their project, that they really love it. And all of this wraps up their development in preparation for the final step, which is to talk to valuable people, to 10 valuable people in your field. So up until now, we've talked to people who are in the field at all. But now it tends to be people who are founders of other organizations or CEOs or people who could get you hired, things like that. And because we've practiced with the 10 friends and family members, with the 5 people closer to you, with the 10 people closer to you in your field, and you've done this personal essay to reinforce how far you've come, these conversations can be very productive. In fact, people in other fields, they don't know, valuable people in these other areas, they don't know that you just started this a couple of weeks before. They see you, because you follow the scripts that you practiced so many times before, as the leader of your project. They see you as a problem solver, just like they are. It was when I was doing these exercises with personal clients, one-on-one clients, before I started teaching it, that they started getting job offers in these stages, that I realized that this is more effective than just starting companies. It's effective at getting people to see you as a problem solver, not a value seeker. And high-level people in organizations, and the valuable people tend to be high-level people, they want problem solvers on their teams. Who doesn't want, you have a problem in your life, and then someone shows up and the problem goes away? You want people like that in your life. And when you contact people as a peer with a project that you want to solve in your field, and it's in their field, and they know about this problem, they see you as someone that they want in their team. And that's why people give job offers at this stage. They start sharing with you their problems, because if you're a problem solver, a lot of them, a lot of CEOs don't get to talk to their problems to other people. You come in as a problem solver, they think, oh, they've solved that problem, maybe they can solve my problem too. And they start sharing with you their problems. And I give you scripts about how to go from someone sharing with you their problems to how they can see you explicitly as someone that they want on your team, that they could hire or promote if you're already in the company, or fund if you or they wanted to do it independently, like how Electric Zoo wanted her to form a nonprofit. So that was step by step how this course works. If someone does 1 exercise a week, it takes 10 weeks, so 2.5 months. The last class I taught at NYU, they did it 2 exercises per week, so they did it in just over a month. Now I want to give a little more high level of what you learn. So the 6 principles are the 6 principles that I describe that, well, I'll state them to you now. And they'll be kind of just words, but when you do the course, the students who take this course, at the end of the course, they start saying these principles are incredibly valuable. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, when I describe them to them, they say, I wouldn't have been able to put those into words, but that's exactly how it works. It took me a long time to learn these things. So again, I'm going to tell you these things. If they're helpful, I hope they are. I mean, this webinar is designed to help you. If they help you, great. But the real value is in doing the exercise and they start taking a life of their own. So one big thing is that more than personality or what you're born with are skills, and not just any skills, but skills that you can learn. Skills of how to meet people, skills of how to develop ideas, skills of how to identify unsolved problems, things like that. A lot of people ask, do you have to be born an entrepreneur? No, 1, you don't. And 2, even if you did, you can always improve. And these exercises are having you learn these skills. The next one is that the idea of a lifetime comes once a month. A lot of people, when they're not entrepreneurs, they think, I have to wait for that great idea. And if I ever get a great idea, I better hold on to it with all I can because it's my one chance. Once you've developed an idea and you realize the importance of execution, 2 things happen. 1, you start realizing ideas are really easy to come by. Ideas are cheap. What makes ideas take a long time, the reason Bill Gates only had 1 thing for so long, is that it takes a long time to implement it. But if you know that if the idea doesn't take off, you only have to wait a little while, at most another month, and then another idea will come your way and you can execute on that one. Then you realize you don't have to hold on for dear life to every problem that comes your way, to every solution that comes your way. If it works, great, go with it. But if not, you don't have to hold on to it and you can let it go. This is important for me. When I was running my company during the recession, I didn't make the best business decisions because I felt attached to the idea. Ultimately, knowing that other ideas are around gives you the ability to take more effective and calculated and optimal business risks. Okay, the next one is that better than a great idea is an okay idea plus listening to your market, flexibility, and iterations. And this is the big key to realizing you don't need a great idea. Just have an okay idea. That's why I start off with having people come up with rudimentary ideas. The next stage is I have you walk through listening to your market, being flexible and iterating. I've come to see that the quality of an idea, of a project that goes off into the market, the biggest thing that determines how effective it will be is how many iterations it's gone through. Not just random ones, but driven by market feedback and you're being flexible. Okay, the next big principle is that if you pitch, they will evaluate. And so many classes and ways of teaching entrepreneurship get you to go pitch your product and service to others. The thing is that if you pitch it, if you say, hey, this thing's great, you should try it, they evaluate you. And the problem with being evaluated is that it separates you. They look at you like a can of corn, and they want to find out before working with you, is there a better can of corn that I can get higher quality, cheaper, or something like that? If, on the other hand, you ask for advice, they will support you. When they see a bit of themselves in your project, they want that to take off because they see a little bit of them in it. And that's why I give you these scripts for how to talk to these other people. So that when you talk to them, you don't only get advice to improve your idea, they also feel invested in your project. The next is that the problem determines the solution. This is one of the main problems I have with Lean Launchpad and other ways of teaching that start with an idea. When you have an idea and that's what you start with, you do what I call square peg round hole. It's oftentimes you make up the problem to fit your solution. The thing is that the people with the problem, they have their problem, not your idea of the problem. If you're lucky, you get it right, but generally you don't. The more that you focus on the problem, the more that the solution becomes evident. As Einstein said, I'm not going to quote him perfectly, but he said, if you give me an hour to solve something, I would spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes working on the solution. So very renowned solver of huge problems. And this course focuses you always on the problem and the people feeling it. And that's the most effective way of solving that problem and enlisting people's help solving it. And the last one is that almost nothing inspires more than helping others so much that they pay you for it. So there's two parts to this. The inspiration part. A lot of people, they feel inspired, like they want to get in shape and they read a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger and they say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym a lot. I feel inspired. Okay, that inspiration, it doesn't last very long. If you want to lift weights, you have to motivate yourself every single time you go to the gym. It doesn't last very long. But when you get inspired to help others, that feeling of these people are suffering, I know how to solve it, and I can do something about it, that inspiration endures for a long time, and it keeps you going. Very few things inspire like that, of helping others. Now, this last part of so much that they pay you for it, a lot of people hear that and they think that sounds jaded or well, I don't know how it sounds to other people, but I want to point out what I mean by it, is that a lot of people think I'm going to help someone else, but if you are working with your idea of their problem, you're often off. You often miss it a little bit. For them to pay you for something means that you are using them as the measure of help, not yourself. It means that they are the ones who've decided that you are helping them, not you. And that forces you to pay attention to them, to listen to them, to work on their problems. And to make something that they're the measure if you have a successful solution. And when that happens, it's a tremendous feeling. When you make your first sale, when you get your first investment, when you get your first one person telling someone else, your first repeat client or word of mouth client. It's a tremendous feeling. All right, so what you learn in this course, there's 3 levels that I want to talk about. What most people want is actually what I consider the smallest of what you get, and that's to create a project that others support. So by project, I mean a solution that people will pay for to a problem that they have. So that's an outcome of this. But it's the smallest outcome of the big outcomes that you get. It could, and by the way, it could be that you create a new venture. It could be that you create a project within your firm. It could be that you get hired into a new firm. You be funded, things like that. So how these projects, the reason I say project is it could be any of these things. The next is what lasts an entire career. So beyond any single project, these are the things that students walk away from this course getting. They get responsibility in a professional world to act on things. They learn initiative to act on these things and to make these things happen, not to wait for others to make them happen for them. And that's by giving them a route to progress, to success. Next is empathy, because it works so much with the people feeling the problem, and compassion on helping create a solution for these people. And it's always putting their interests, the customer's interests, the people who are going to be where your profit's going to be coming from. It's putting their interests first, not, as often happens when you start with an idea, of putting your interests first. I find that tremendously useful for leadership and for entrepreneurship. Then how to communicate value. It's not just pitching. It's communicating that you understand their problem and how your solution is going to help them in a way that they appreciate that you're sharing this with them. And how to create a supportive community. When you finish this course, you have a lot of people rooting for you. Some of them major, valuable people in peer companies that you're going to be working with, who see you as a peer that they want to help. And most important of all, as important as those things were, there's something more that you get from this. And that is that you uncover your passions by learning to act on them. I talk to a lot of people about passions, and a lot of people tell me they just don't have any passions. They feel like, I don't know if I have any passions because I don't feel anything that I really want to work on. You know, a lot of us, I believe that everybody has a passion. Everybody has many passions. The thing is that our passions, being what motivate us very strongly, are also our vulnerabilities. And we feel vulnerable about these things. We don't want to share powerful motivations because we know that people can manipulate it with us. We can be laughed at. We've all been laughed at. We've all been humiliated. We've all felt ashamed. We've all had something that we cared about and people didn't value it like we did. And so we learned to hide them, that we suppress these things and we deny them. So much to the point that many of us, oh, and by the way, why do we do it? We do it to protect ourselves. Not because we don't want to have passions, but because if we don't share them, then we can't be manipulated with them. We can't be hurt with them. And if we live our life devoid of passion, we live our life devoid of pain. That's what we learn. That's not a great strategy to live your life. But if you don't know any better, it's better than being humiliated all the time. So we protect ourselves with these things. Some conclude that they have no passions. And I think that's why. But a path to success liberates you to uncover and share those passions. If you can act on these passions in a way that's likely to lead to success, then you can act on it. And you don't have to feel, you can let it out. You can, how do I put it? You cannot feel ashamed. And that's a major gift, that projects come and go, but this ability to find and act on your passions lasts forever. And by the way, it spills out from working in the classes. It spills out from my course to other courses, and with clients, it spills from the project that we work on to the students start talking about how their relationship with their spouse or significant other improves, or with the children, and they start living a more exciting life. You connect with others on passion and acting on it, not just in your field, but in lots of other fields. So you as an entrepreneur can connect with other entrepreneurs. You as a problem solver, connect with other problem solvers, whether it's in your company, in another company, or so forth. So how the course works, first, how it doesn't work. There are lots of people out there that say things like, ignite your inner passion. The universe will provide. Sounds great, but to me, these are vague instructions. And my course has only clear, actionable instructions, very clear things to do. Nothing new agey, nothing that just make you feel good, but don't actually tell you what to do. It's the doing that makes you feel good. So instead of giving you answers, principle, and theory, talking about what I see most books and most courses, virtually all of them about, they give you answers, they give you principles, they give you theory, but that's not what makes a great entrepreneur. It gives you experience so that you discover the answers yourself. In the end, you'll be able to give answers that are better than you can read about because you've lived through these things. In fact, you'll know this stuff as well as I do. The only difference is that I've had more experience if you're new to entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial thinking behavior. But all you need after doing this course is to keep practicing the exercises, and you'll be able to develop entrepreneurial skills as advanced as anyone's. Okay, so I said that there are 10 exercises. Here's how it works from exercise to exercise. Each begins with instruction. And the instruction comes in two ways. There's written, and I recorded my describing the exercises to a student who was also taking the course for the first time. So you get to hear me describe it to him, and then he asks me questions, and you can hear this person going through learning how to do each exercise. Then you do the exercises at your own pace. So you might be going off and writing your essay. You might be going off and talking to 5 people that feel the problem, or you might go off and work on your financials. So you do those exercises on your own at your pace. I think it's about a week per exercise, but some people can do them faster. Some take longer. Depends on what else you're doing in your life and how quickly you want to see the results. And again, it's unique. It's on what you care about with people that you care about. So everybody's experience is going to be unique and personal to them. And it's always going to be about things that you care about. So people really like it. Next, after you do these exercises, is that you have to do a reflection. By reflection, I mean you have to write up your reflections of how the exercise went, what you learned, how it felt. And the reason I do that is that reflecting on something internalizes and generalizes what you learned through experience. So you go off and you do stuff and you learn through the experience of how things work, things like that. When you write it up, it internalizes that. It sticks. And also generalizes. So you realize, oh, that thing that I learned is not just with those people, it's with all types of people, things like that. And there's another big element that makes doing the course through my software much more effective, is that you post your reflection to advance to the next exercise. So after you finish the first exercise, you write up your reflections, generally in a word processor, you copy and paste that into the website. And when it posts, you can read everybody else's reflections and they can read yours. So you can see whatever you got from the experience, someone else got a slightly different experience and someone else got a slightly different experience. Many people got very different experiences. You can read their experiences. And also, you know that they're going to read yours. So that adds an element of accountability, so that you have to write and think more comprehensively and more thoroughly. And you also learn through others' different experiences, so that you get a broader experience than just what you got by yourself. And you have this sense of community. So that many students found that this community and sharing the most valuable part of the course, knowing that other people would read what they wrote and that they would read what other people wrote. And that's a value that you get doing this online, that lets you read everyone who's taken the course before. You can read everything that they've written, and everyone afterward, you can keep reading afterward. And then also when you finish it, you get to hear my conversation with that student who I recorded the conversations with, describing the exercises. You also hear me talking to him after having done the exercises, so you can hear what he got, and you get to hear what it was like for that person, not just written, but real-time conversation. I want to mention something that it may sound a little funny right now, but I found it very valuable with many people. A lot of people, they start doing this course with one project in mind. They write down their first essay and they pick a field that they think is interesting to them. And sometime on the way through, they realize that as much as they like that field, the more that they start practicing this stuff, the more that they realize there's another field that they like a lot more. And they come to me and they say, Josh, can I change projects? Can I switch to something different? And I say, yeah, you can. No problem. You just start from the beginning for the new one. And they think that might sound like more work, but actually, even if you're up on step 7 or 8 or 9 and you switch projects, it turns out that going through the first steps again is much faster. They learn a lot more. And they realize that the field that they're in now is much more valuable to them, and that they knew this stuff a lot better than they thought they did. So I do recommend for people, it happens a lot, and it's valuable to switch. Now, if you don't switch, that's fine too. A lot of people know they've always wanted to go in one field. They can stick with that field, no problem. But if they want to switch, I say give it some serious thought, because doing these exercises helps you get past those protections that you've created for yourself to access things that you're really passionate about. A lot of people think at the beginning, oh, I like that. I shouldn't just do it because I like it. I should do something that will make a lot of money, or something that is in a hot field right now. And then they start doing it, and it's often their first experience of their own project progressing. Up until now, they've always been told by teachers, professors, bosses, managers, parents what to do, and they've just done what they've been told to do. This sometimes is their first time picking something from scratch that's entirely on their own and realizing they can make progress on it. They don't have to be scared. They don't have to deny and suppress these things. So these projects can reveal what was suppressed and denied. Then you act on those things. They realized they were doing what was popular or hot area, or that they thought would be really big. Oh, I want to do the next Facebook. I got to pick something that has a global market. Well, Facebook didn't start with a global market. It started with Harvard only. Walmart is huge. It didn't start with being huge. It started with getting the dregs that Sears didn't have. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but Walmart didn't start with a big idea. It started with what Sam Walton could do. I'm not a big fan of the company, but they're certainly very successful in terms of making a lot of profit. So a lot of people picked what they didn't necessarily care about, but now they realize, hey, what I care about matters. And it matters to enough people that I can make some money off of it, and I can solve some problems for people. And then they start really feeling passion for the new project. So if you're one of these people, I know you're not doing the course yet, but if it happens, I recommend restarting on what you care about. There's just no other way to learn to identify what you care about for many people to get past those protections. Sometimes you just have to go out and do something, find out that as much work as you put into it, you want to put in that much more work for something else. My example here is that a student came to me last semester. We met during office hours. We met for about an hour. And she said, Josh, your course is great. I see how it's working. You're doing all this experiential stuff. That's really cool. I'm learning stuff that I'm not learning in other courses. But here's the deal. I want to become a social worker. And the type of social work that I want to do requires a law degree. And so I have to get into law school. And so can you just tell me how I can get an A? I need an A. Just tell me what to do to get an A. So she was well on the way. It was like 3/4 through the course. And she was working on this travel project. It wasn't, she traveled last summer and she was doing stuff she was coming up with a solution to some problems in travel. And I asked her a bit about social work. And, if you're going to go to law school, you're going to get a lot of debt. And if you're going to go into social work, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. And I realized she really cared about social work enough that it was going to make law school work for her. Meanwhile, the travel stuff wasn't a really big deal for her. I said to her, if you really want an A, I can tell you what you need to do to get an A with a travel project, but I can tell that it doesn't stir up the passion in you that the social work stuff does. If instead you switch to something you really care about, a couple things will happen. You're going to have to work a lot more because you're going to start from the essay. You have to start from the very beginning, but you're going to like the work more, and it's going to feel like less work. But another big thing is that because you care about this field, you can use this course, the exercises in this course, to make connections in social work, in law school, not just because it could help you, but because it helps the project. So for example, if it's something legal related, you can talk to professors at the law schools that you want to apply to. And because these scripts that we do get them to participate in your project, they will be on your side. And when it comes time to applying to law school, you can get recommendations. And there's very few more valuable recommendations than from professors at the school. And they'll do these recommendations, not all of them, but some, not because you came to them and just asked, but because you came to them and solved problems together with them. You created a working relationship with them. Same with social work. You don't have to wait till you finish law school. You can start working with social workers and the people in social work right now while you're in school. Maybe you'll find you don't need to go to law school. Maybe you'll find you don't like it. Whatever you find, it's going to be valuable for you because you're going to be doing things that really matter to you with people that really matter to you. So when the hour ended, I said, look, I can't decide this for you. One way is faster and easier. That's to keep doing this travel thing. The other way is harder, but will be what you care about. And it'll feel easier. And so I let her figure it out for herself. So the next week, she said she had a social work project that she wanted to work on. 2 weeks later, she was so into that project that I wasn't even sure. Like I couldn't even tell if she was just faking it because if she was so into it, I thought maybe she's just saying exactly what I want to hear, because as a professor, of course, you like to hear your students getting into the projects. At the end, she emailed me this. She said, I just wanted to thank you for an amazing semester. Taking your class was a really transformative and introspective experience for me. I learned about myself, what I want, and what I believe in. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. I know I can be really stubborn sometimes. Thanks for believing in me and encouraging me to focus on my passions. And lastly, thanks for making each class interesting and memorable. So she switched. I asked her, should I tell others to switch if they come to me with the same issues? She said, yes. I mean, they have to make the choice for themselves, but give them the same talk that you gave me. So anyway, that's giving you an aside that many of you won't have that, but some will. The opportunity to switch, or feeling like there are other fields that they like more, or other fields that you like more. So now I want to get to some logistics. This course that I do online has the same exercises in the same order, using the same software as all my NYU students. So actually, when you go online, if you take this course, you will see you'll see a lot of the stuff that they've written up there, and you can learn from them. And some of them who stick around, they can learn from you as well. I want to point out a major difference. So more of my students came from Stern. I don't know if you guys know NYU, but Stern is the School of Business within NYU. And more of my students came from Stern than any other place. And it was a 4-point class. And so these students, if you look, paid $6,056 to take this course. That's like, to me is a huge amount of money. But that's what they did, and they really like the course. Now, I really want to point out that they do get a classroom experience. So every week we would meet for 2.5 hours, and we would get to work together. But a lot of that is me having them do the exercises with each other. But the exercises that you do on your own and the reflections that you write on your own, that's where you really learn. And that's what happens independent of having a classroom experience. And you end up using the same form so that you see what each other have posted. And no university that I've ever heard of gives a money-back guarantee. And my course actually comes with a money-back guarantee. Although I will point out that no one yet has exercised that option, because people started and they seem to like it. So no one has asked for that guarantee. But it is there, just to show that I stand behind this. Now, the course, you must be self-motivated. Unlike the NYU students, I don't give you grades. Your parents aren't going to get mad at you if you don't get a good grade and things like that. Actually, the graduate students and the professional students, they're incredibly motivated because they've chosen to be there themselves. They're not just doing college because that's what you're supposed to do at that age. So you must be self-motivated to do this course. But my introductory price is $498. So it's significantly, that's a 92%, better than 92% off compared to what the NYU students are paying. And it's actually a bigger discount because right now, these courses are still getting started. And I'm responding a lot on the forum. When people want me to, I respond to them. And that eventually is going to be a premium service that I'm going to charge extra for. But for now, it's there because I like responding to people. And there aren't that many people, so I can respond to them right now. So why the discount? By the way, I've started a lot of companies over the years. And when I start companies, I've found success by the same strategy of starting low. And then I raise prices to find the market clearing price. And I don't know where that's going to be right now. I know it's going to be higher than $498, but I'm not sure where. So I'm not sure when I will raise it. Probably pretty soon, but not yet. So for right now, it's a low price. And so at 10 exercises, if you do one per week, that's 2.5 months. So that's less than $200 per month. The NYU students did 2 exercises per week. So that was 1.25 months. If you're interested in doing this course, and really this webinar was just to describe it to you, but if you're interested in it, it's very easy to sign up. You go to my blog, you go to joshuaspodek.com, and right there where those arrows are pointing is the courses button, and just click on courses and it'll give you a list of 2 courses, the leadership course, which is a different one, and the entrepreneurial thinking and behavior course, which is this one. And you click on that and just it takes you to the site, and then you can register and start taking the course if you want. In fact, in a month and a quarter, you could be doing your project with peers who are supporting you. With high value people becoming your peers and helping you and having a vested interest in your success and having a passion that you've never felt before. Also, I just decided I'm going to do one time. Actually, I just got my developers to create the discount code functionality. So I put one in for CPM. So if you register for the course and you type in CPM, another 15% off. I'm not sure how long I'm going to do that. There's only a couple of people on this webinar, so I'll probably only keep it for a day or two. But that would be a 15% discount. Oh, and there's one thing that I haven't even had the developers develop yet, but there's a bigger discount for really dedicated people. And this one I'll just have to wing. Like it's not yet developed in the course, but I really want people who are very dedicated, who really want to take this course and really want to make it happen for them. So for them, if they finish, anyone who finishes in under 31 days and does quality work, so that means doing more than 2 exercises a week, it's fast but possible, then I'm going to give a 90% discount. I'm going to send back the money so that you only pay for 10% of this course. So it's less than $50. But it has to be quality work, and you have to finish the last one within 31 days. Why am I doing that? Because I am very motivated to get the people who really want to make this happen out there. Because I think that they're going to be my best evangelists. After they've done the course and gotten a project started, I think they're going to be the best people to say, how did I get started? Josh's course. So it's fast, but it can be done. A lot of these exercises you can do very quickly. Even the talking to 10 different people. Okay, so that means I'll return 90% when you finish. So think about what you can do when you can create your own luck. So far I've been talking about the course, but put this into context of your life. Imagine you are out there. I'm not sure how you feel about your projects now, about how you feel about your jobs now. I don't know many people who want to be less entrepreneurial, at least have the ability to do it. Imagine you have the ability to identify unsolved problems, maybe in your own company that you could tell to your managers, like my first client. But instead of proposing them for them to evaluate and judge, to involve them in the process, involve others in the process, so that by the time you are giving them the project, they already know about it. They know that you have other people on board, that there's a lot of people working on this, that you're responsible. And imagine you know how to do that. Or imagine you want to work at a new company. Maybe you don't work anywhere now, or you work at one company and you want to switch to another. Imagine you can go to that company as a problem solver, as someone who knows people, who's worked with people in the field, that can vouch for you, that you can say, I've made this project, part of what made this project what it is someone in your company or someone in this other company that's very well known in the field. They see you, and imagine them seeing you as someone, wow, this person solved a problem or is solving a problem that's out there that my company could solve. I want them on board. What doors does that open? What's your equivalent of a Victoria's Secret runway show? I would love to have gone to that thing. My student did what it took by doing the exercises with people in the course, and the guest speaker, and got to a Victoria's Secret runway show. That's what she wanted to do. She's in fashion. That's perfect for her. Creating projects that your company can't help but give you. Imagine having projects that by the time you bring them to the high-level people, the decision makers, they can't help but say, it's your project, like with that first client of mine. Or outselling professional salespeople even without taking a sales course. What's your equivalent of these things? And I can tell you the side benefits is better relationships with family, with friends, with partners and significant others, with interviewers. When you're in an interview for a job and you're talking about this project that you worked on, that's what they really care about. Well, there are many things that they care about, but one thing that they like to see is for you to take initiative and responsibility to solve a problem yourself. So some more student voices. Oh, I have it's just showing up on everyone's screen. What you're seeing here is student voices from the course that I taught last semester. And I just want to show you a couple of these top things. This is one of the greatest classes I've ever taken. It was engaging, thought-provoking, challenging, and fun. Josh is an incredible teacher. If I could take this class all over again, I would. 10 out of 10 would take again. I loved every second of the class. But what's cooler, I think that I may have loved the homework even more. That's where the value is. Here's ones I used before. Look, by the way, there's 16 pages of these quotes. I'm just stopping at a random place. I really enjoyed this course. Coming to class I was interested in taking this because I'd read the syllabus from. I can truly say that I've learned a lot in this class, and I will continue with my project going forward. This is a student, probably under 21 years old, and the course led them to create a project that was valuable for them enough that they want to continue after the course ends. I believe that the class was full of individual creativity, and putting it together really created a synergy of something much more. This class was very different from my typical course load, and it made me feel like I was making a difference in life and being impactful rather than just learning about finance and money. I'll definitely take what I learned in this class and apply it in the future. This course has been helpful in many ways, both entrepreneurially and just in life. I always knew that high-value people were accessible. Now I know what steps I have to take in order to connect with them. I became more aware and confident in my skills as a social entrepreneur. This class gave me the opportunity to apply the skills I'm learning straight to the real world. We haven't just been learning about what a social entrepreneur is with the textbook and memorizing different definitions or case studies and then regurgitate them back on exam. Okay, so you see that there's a lot of these. If you search on my blog, you can see that I posted these up a couple months ago. And so you can read all of these. Where's the... Okay, so there are some more. Oh, and here's an email I got 2 days ago, unsolicited. So the student wrote, in the context of the email, she wrote, I actually got the interview. She talked about a job that she's interviewing with by reaching out directly to someone in advertising rather than the typical application process, which is something that I learned to do from class. So I definitely appreciate how much time we spent on interpersonal skills. This is just to show you, people like months later, they're still getting job opportunities because of stuff that they learned in the course. Here's a partial list of student results. From doing the homework, at least 5 students got jobs, 2 won cash awards. That means they won contests at NYU to get their projects going. One's project started before class ended. So this student he wanted to develop a program to teach high school students things. And he got that project going before class ended. And then they were coming in, he was bringing high school students into NYU to learn from him and his team. That was in the process, in the time of the class. One nonprofit, that was the one that I talked about with the governor's ball thing. One student her idea evolved into a medical device, which led her to talk to some doctors, which led her to talk to other doctors, which led her to talk to a medical device company. And she is now leading a team of medical engineers as an undergrad. I mean, she has a leadership role. Of course, they're doing there's other people leading it also, but she's working on a project with a medical device company up in New Haven. And she goes there about once a month to work with them on that project. I'm pretty sure that that's going to lead to whatever job that she wants in the field that she wants to take it that way. Many students have gotten internships from doing these homeworks. One got that Victoria's Secret fashion show I told you about, and she was the one who thought that she couldn't do any of these things, and many more projects like that. Again, I'm just about wrapping up. How to sign up? Go to joshuaspodek.com. Click on the courses button right there. That'll take you to where you can choose the leadership course, the entrepreneurship course. This is the entrepreneurial thinking and behavior course. And then you can sign up. And I want to thank you. That was a long talk. That was longer than I thought.